Welcome to Launch Story. In each episode, you will get a behind-the-scenes look at a course, a program, a product launch. Here is your host, Dr. Ada Barlatt.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in once again. I am super excited today to have Connie here for a fabulous conversation. So Connie Vanderzanden is on a mission to help entrepreneurs live the lifestyles they desire by learning the simple steps, structure, and discipline to create and save money. With 34 years of accounting and bookkeeping experience, a variety of industry knowledge, and her own real-life business growth journey since 2001, Connie developed the Going Beyond Revenue cash handling system, focusing on cash flow planning that creates profitable and sustainable businesses. Connie is a true Oregonian, born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, where she spends time with her husband of 34 years and their fur kid. Oh, thank you so much, Connie, for joining me today. Tell us about your business and how does it all relate to launches?
Sure. Thank you, Ada. I'm excited to be here. I always enjoy talking about business with anyone who wants to. And I will apologize ahead of time. My fur kid is in my room with me, but she's kind of taking a nap. So.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. No worries.
So my business is, I closed a bookkeeping business. That's what I built a business on for 18 years, commodity service type of thing. And about 4 years ago, I decided I never really liked bookkeeping, to be honest.
Wow.
But I really liked the interaction, like that initial conversation with the business owner and that regular meeting showing them how their numbers can help support their business. And you can immediately see that relief happen. So, and when I went through my own business growth, I got into some financial trouble. I didn't create a plan and I got into debt and I didn't pay myself for 6 years during that period. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But, and so I learned a lot, but I've taken all of that now and gone back to the roots of when I started my business was that conversation.
Yeah.
So now I spend time talking with business owners about being empowered with their numbers, how to use their numbers in a financial plan and how to create that regular habit around looking at it. And part of it is a cash handling system because most of the times I'd get on a call with a client or even myself was like, I really would like to hire, or I really would like to invest in a launch, but I have no idea if I have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So a cash handling system creates that intentional use as money comes in. And that way you'll know, is there money in the account or not?
Yes.
So it's a combination of our natural spending, which is that when we were raised, most of us were raised that paycheck to paycheck mentality. You work, you earn money, you spend, and you used to spend it all.
Repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're changing because we've got to work with that natural habit. Not all of us, some entrepreneurs don't have that habit, but we're going to work with it, but we're also going to adjust the habit too. So we're going to put creating the financial plan, create an intentional use for money as it comes in, and then easily transfer it to smaller buckets so that we don't spend it all, because usually businesses have one bank account, all the money comes in, and we usually spend it before it even stays longer.
Yeah.
I used to spend it before I even had it, really. And you were in that constant hustle phase of more sales to get there.
Yeah.
And then you transfer it out so that you're making sure you get paid well and first, that you're saving for profit, which is your growth. So if you were going to do a launch, do you have money in your profit account to fund that?
Yeah.
Save for taxes, because a profitable business will owe tax regardless.
For sure.
So just put on your big girl panties and say that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then the rest goes into operating. So you have a smaller bucket for operating. And so you'll know if you have enough funds in there to do any extraordinary more ad spends or not, if you don't have it in profit. And of course, if the money isn't there, then we look at financing and debt and how to use that constructively rather than just putting it on the credit card and someday we'll get to paying that off. It's a different way of running a business, which when we first started startups,
Yeah.
we're just in hustle phase. We're just wanting to be found. We're just wanting to have people pay us and get our name out there. And so it's about getting tired of that hustle phase, because that's not a long-term way that businesses can stay focused. Creating a pause, really connecting with your numbers and your and money in your business, and deciding now what kind of impact do you want to make? How do you want your business to lead? And usually that's when we're ready for launches, because you're probably not going to launch the first couple years of your business. I mean, you can, but you're building that list and stuff. So it depends on where you're at. You're more confident. You know what you're selling. You know who your ideal client is. Usually at years 3 to 5, that's usually when a launch will come in. But if you're still hustling just to get money in the door, then money's going to play into it a lot. Like, will you have the funds to invest?
Right.
And what kind of results do you want to get?
Right. Oh, there's so many things I could say. So first, I find this idea of multiple buckets fascinating. So I do have one bucket right now for the tax part, but I don't have any of the other ones. So that's intriguing in and of itself. I'll have to read some more on your blog or something to learn more about these other buckets. But then also, I feel like you're bringing up a great notion that I haven't spoken with too many people about in this series, is investing in terms of your launch. So definitely when you want to go, very large, and you're looking to maybe hire a team and, up your software game, all that stuff takes money, hiring a competent team that will help you to manage, maybe the few thousands of people that you have on your list, and all that stuff does take money, and it will probably happen, when you're a bit into your business. So yeah, for sure, coming up with a plan is that this lovely tipping point. I find, like, when you're not going to do it just on your own, because I find that lots of new entrepreneurs might launch bootstrapping, kind of, okay, it's all me, I'm going to do all the emails, I'm going to do all the things, I'm going to make all the websites, and that that can work for them to create a little nest egg, let's say. But when you're really ready to scale big, the big players have teams of people, and that does require an investment. And I find it's interesting. I don't get into my clients' finances, but it's interesting. I wonder how many of them actually have a plan. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I remember my first coach said, this is what my recommendation is. And we did a summit to build my list.
Okay.
And she told me approximately how much it was going to cost.
Okay.
And so I was like, fine. I wasn't planning at that stage. I was throwing things on credit cards, and that someday I will pay that off type of routine. But I have worked with clients who have been in the middle of a launch and not had access to any capital to finish their launch. So, or they'll not steal. Let's use another word. It feels like they've stolen from it on the other side of the launch, but they'll borrow any new revenue coming in that may need to fund their business for the next 6 months. They'll use it for that. And I think that's the most common thing, is when I've worked with a couple clients who really rely on a big launch.
Yeah.
Once a year, they're launching a big group program, and they're going to get they have consistently gotten a lot of dollars in for that time. And that's going to sustain them for another 12 months. And if they haven't really been paying attention to where their expenses are, as soon as that money comes in, it goes right back out, because they haven't been paying themselves, and because they haven't paid their team and stuff. And so they don't have the sustainability for that they thought they were going to get. So it really comes into play. How much are you willing to invest? How much do you have available?
Right.
If you don't have it available, where's it going to come? And then based on what metrics you want for that launch, how's that going to sustain? So my first group program, when we beta tested it, I really wanted 5 team members, and some weird dollar amount came off my mouth, like that value that I said it was going to be X. And I'm like, that's not really the right dollar amount to sustain my time for the next 90 days. but I said it, so I'm going to do it. This is a beta launch.
Yeah.
When we launched it again, I held that boundary. I held the actual value. Of course, I think COVID at this time launches are kind of wonky right now.
Yes. Everything's kind of wonky right now.
we did not have the results. And so I had to say, no, I'm not willing. I know how much time I'm going to invest in this and deliverables that I'm going to do. What we have right now is not enough to take my time away from these other things. And so we actually canceled the group program, refunded, and we'll launch it again in 2021. But sometimes that happens too, is so making sure that enough, where's your bare minimum to even hold your launch?
Yes, that's powerful. That is powerful. And I love that sticking to your boundaries, because I think often people, may get people into their launch, especially in a not where, I guess we're not talking evergreen here. We're talking about, during these 2 weeks, you can buy in, and outside these 2 weeks, registration is closed. And I feel that sometimes business owners have a lot of pressure or stress to be like, okay, well, these people bought, I should run the course. They may have expenses. Perhaps they hired a team or paid for software, and they feel pressured to kind of just go through with it, even though if you were to look at it on the spreadsheet or really think about the time or the opportunity cost, it may not be worth it. So I find that that's amazing that you were able to, and probably given what you do for your clients and your own experience, you shared with us, like, nope, this isn't going to fly. Because so many people don't think about that. I find that, I love launches, don't get me wrong. I enjoy them. As we record this, I'm in the midst of helping someone with their launch. And so it's an exciting, fun, abundant feeling time. But I'm curious if any of my clients, not within the work that I do, but it's so important. I'm curious if you could make an offer about this, or an opt-in or something that I could send people to like have them think through the numbers up front, and really think about their whole year and what does that mean, right? Like, I charge up front. I charge before the launch happens. And so I've never really, and and when I get in launch mode, I'm thinking about the tech. I'm thinking about, all the things that I do. So I'm like, oh, they really should be thinking about that a little bit more.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you probably have seen this. So, because I know this happened in my launch. So I had to pay my launch team up front.
Yeah.
So that was all out there. Yeah. But I was still in hustle mode to try and pay that off. And so I had to take time away from the launch, which meant I was getting stuff late to my team. So have you ever noticed that, where they're super excited about it, but they have to continue hustling over here to get sales in so that they can pay for that. Yeah. So it's really, when we're looking at a launch, it's not only do we have the finances, but do we have the bandwidth to focus on it? Because even if we're still in hustle mode to try to sell, to pay for, we're really taking away from the energy of it.
Yeah, no, I totally have observed that in terms of, clients that might be late on deadlines, but they have too much on their plate. And I maybe naively attributed that to just like, oh, they're very busy. They're running this busy practice, right? But perhaps it was a little bit of not knowing their buckets, or dipping into these other buckets before and really launching, before they were ready. It's an interesting trade-off this conversation is making me aware of. It's like, you launch so you can have people enjoy your fabulous content, and also to, boost your revenue. But to think that you need to have a certain amount in reserve to even fund the launch is such an interesting idea. And I can't think of a single quote unquote launch guru that talks in that frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, I even had a coach that has a larger community, and she was launching. So she was adding a lot of team in place to create these new products. So she was the content creator. She was the one that was going to do all the recording, but she had another team that was doing the back end, the sales funnels and those types of things. But it was taking a long time for that team to even be able to sell one of these products. And it was a major part of the financial plan for the year. And so that's important to know. How long is it going to take your team to produce all these things? Because sometimes things will get in the way. If you've never done a launch and you haven't put yourself out there, some of your why, some of your worthiness might get in the roadblock. Oh, I don't want to get on video. I don't want to do this. But then you also have this finance component, and then there's going to be the time component. So you've got these three things all going on at the same time that we need to really focus on. And so it might also be, this might be a new product for you, is that pre-launch, do they have all those three things in place? Maybe it's a new program that they'll go through and like identify those three things. Are you ready to launch?
Yeah. I love that. Hey, who knows, maybe we'll do it together. That is very interesting, because it's really something. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't get into the financial details of my clients. We talk about the finances of their launch and the success of their launch and stuff, but not these other pieces. And you're really opening my eyes to a new piece of it. Let me ask you this. When it comes to the financial plans and the cash flow plans that you make for people, how do you include time? Because first, for me, I think of like a budget, or, if I think of my, profit and loss statement, it's kind of like a certain amount of time, a month, a year to date. And there are some numbers on the page, right? I made this much, I spent this much, yay. As we're talking about launching, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, do I have enough time? Do I have enough runway to like create all this stuff? I have another client that's coming to mind right now that's literally running out of runway. Yeah. and stuff is not created yet. So how would you help someone with that in terms of the cash flow?
Yeah. So it's a little clunky still. I'm still looking for the right tool for this, but it's about looking at a calendar. So a lot of people might get those laminated all full year calendars that they put on the wall. That's one way you can do it yourself, is like pencil it out. How much time do you need to create? And when are you selling and when are you delivering for clients, and kind of like play out the days. You remember to put your vacation on there first, and any holidays that you might want to do, prioritize you and your family first. And then the launches, the marketing, speaking, and client delivery, and you'll be able to see. So that's what we did, is I created a spreadsheet that had all the months in each week, and she did everything she wanted to create. She had to give it a time period. And we found that there were several quarters during the year that she wasn't going to have the bandwidth, because she was traveling, because this was pre-COVID. Yeah. She was traveling, or she had something else going on. She was writing a book at the time, the person who was responsible for all the sales and all the creative content was not available to move those projects forward.
That's so fascinating. What I'm realizing in this conversation right now is the cash flow planning, as you describe it, is really the mixture of, bandwidth and finances. It like pulls everything together, and really gives you almost like a bird's eye view of the year that you can run forward with. It's a very powerful analysis. Wow, mm-hmm. Wow. So you mentioned a little earlier that you had a beta, yes. And then you made the very, you reinforced your boundaries and said, we were launching it at this new price point, I assume. I think you implied. We didn't get the correct
price point.
But was it the same price point?
No, it was the correct price point.
So the correct price point, Yeah.
It's funny how you'll have some price point come out of your mouth and you're like, well, that is a really good deal for 90 days worth of X. I'm like, okay, well, all right, well, it's out there, so I'm going to honor that. But yeah, the next one was like, no, the real price point is this.
Yeah.
And you gotta have some beta testers. So
yeah, beta testers are always helpful. But it is interesting. Like, you're beta testing the price in some ways as just as much as you're beta testing the tech and the structure and the content and all of these. It kind of all has to come together to make it work. So your beta test had all these different components. What did you feel that the other components worked for you? And it was, getting the real price point out there, or were there other things that you learned along the way?
Yeah, well, I learned that I really love the container for myself. It allowed me some creativity space to play with people, to develop programs. So even if that is a loss leader for me moving forward, it's definitely going to be a great area for me to create new content. Yes. So I get that community to play off of. And it was in a space with technology that worked well for me. Instead of a Facebook group, we had used Slack, and it seemed to work really good. So I think the technology piece was great. The team member, the people that participated really enjoyed it. We got great feedback on them. But, again, yeah, maybe this launch was at a price point that wasn't ideal. It also could be COVID time. Let's see, we launched this. It was supposed to start in September. So it was that end of summer, which normally for launch probably isn't at the ideal time, but we wanted to try to get people into a group to carry them, have that accountability through the end of December. So they kept that forward motion. But that was probably the one thing, is when we went to go from beta, like, oh my gosh, I have an idea, let's do this.
Yes.
Boom, 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 to a more structured launch. I think there just wasn't enough emotional attachment to why somebody would want to do it. I think, we don't want to do our marketing based on the pain points. And, that's old marketing behavior. But I also don't think a stagnant sales page is well, with everything going on in our world, we need some more video on it. We need some talking through. You need to do more connection and interacting for people to say, yes, I'd love to spend 90 days with you, but I don't know you. So why? If you're inviting somebody into that type of container, they've got to have a date with you first,
for sure,
in some fashion, and rather than a product. I'm more than happy to spend, $97 on a product where I don't interact with somebody. But that's a different, I think, sales page than a group sales page. So
yeah. Well, lots of really amazing lessons that you've learned in terms of the way that you help people. I can tell you that in our conversation here today, I'm like, oh, you've given me so much to think about. So maybe, a webinar or something. You might have done a webinar, since I know I'm on Connie's list. So I keep up with what she's up to. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
One question that I have, especially going back to what we were saying before, in terms of, having the finances ready to launch, do you have any rules of thumb that you would say, or if someone were to, show you like, hey, Connie, this is how much money I have in each of my buckets, you'd be like, oh no, don't do this. Anything that comes to mind?
Well, that's the one thing, is I don't ever say no. I might say you might want to hold off. But yeah, entrepreneurs have the greatest ability to go out and create and bring money in, and they have that gift. And so I try to not say no.
Okay.
But I will say, when they have a lot of other things going on, I'm like, okay, that's, again, goes back to bandwidth. You want to do this, and this. That seems to be a lot of your time spread a little thin. So all three of those things are not going to be done well. What if we did just one at a time and then measured that reaction, measured how this did, and then do that and do that. So there's a little bit more pausing and waiting sometimes when we do expenses. So I think when you look out ahead of time, if you're having to invest, if you're having to go get a credit card or a loan or something to invest in technology or a team for launch, over the next 12 months, how long will it take you to pay it back? So that you can do it again if you needed to or something. So that's the key I want people to be considerate of. I don't think debt is horrible for a business. I think it's a great way to leverage, but I also don't want it to be hanging over your head for years and years like it has for me. And that weight after the first 2 years is can be stifling to a business. So what other ways can you do that?
Yeah, that's amazing. Really make people think. I don't, I'm not sure if I think through. Like I recently invested in a smaller program, not like one of these big signature courses, but a smaller program, and I didn't even cross my mind before I chose to make that investment. And so
stories about that.
yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. If you were to invest, how long will it take me to pay it back?
Yeah.
I've looked at and I think that question probably applies to every business investment decision, but definitely when it comes to launching, there is this almost sexy pull towards like, okay, I have this launch and it's going to be fantastic, and at the end there's just going to be money everywhere. But it's an interesting question to ask yourself. One of the things I'm noticing with some of my clients, especially those that do affiliate launches, where they're trying to select, or maybe I think it's I think there's an opportunity for a conscious choice to make a decision on how much commission you provide your affiliates. I'm surprised how often that decision is made based on best practices, I'll put, in air quotes. And I think that this is a very interesting question to ask yourself in terms of.
Because it's, we do offer a commission to our referral partners, and it's based on the lifetime of the client. Like, how much marketing would I need to do that? Because for me, a client that's coming from a really good source, like, okay, so I did the launch and I had people with huge lists that I was paying an affiliate, and people with smaller lists. The people with smaller lists actually had better return because their list was more responsive and they were more into that culture of like, whatever this person says, I'm going to do. And the people with the big list had, very little small returns. Yeah. So I would prefer to pay a bigger commission on somebody who's a raving fan that's going to help me get that information out there, because those people are going to stay with me longer, more than likely, because of the recommendation from someone they're already following. So you have to think about, where are they coming from? How long are they going to stay in your funnel or in your sales process? And what's that actual dollar worth in the long term?
Such fascinating questions that are really important to reflect on. And I'm deeply reflecting on them as you're saying them. And I'm like, wow, I can see how I've zoomed right past them and how lots of other people do as well. This has been such a great conversation. We got to learn about, my gosh, finances in terms of launching in all sorts of ways. And you were so open in your story. And clearly you have so much to teach us all. I learned a lot in our conversation. Where can people learn more about you, learn more about this program, if you choose to relaunch it, and to keep in touch with you?
Sure. Well, we've just made a really easy landing page. It's moneyactiontips.com with an S, TIPS.com. And on there, we have a resource that you can automatically get into. You can get 30 minutes time with me, which is complimentary, because I always want people to have, like, if you were confused with something that we talked about, I want to make sure that you have the education and information you need to move forward. And you can also get on our mailing list. And so super easy to do that. And then I do some videos. I have a YouTube channel that I interviewed Ada on there. And we'll let everybody know that's on the list when the next group will launch. But we think it'll be probably February. We have this idea for Love Your Money in February. So it'll be in there. But lots of fun things in the works. So yeah, if you'd like to learn more, come on by.
Yes, what a great URL, moneyactiontips.com. Well, Connie, thank you so much for chatting with me. It really has been a pleasure, and I'm grateful. All right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to be notified for the next episode. If you know someone that would benefit from this episode, please share. If you are ready to improve your launch results, visit Dr. Ada's website at www.operationsally.com. All of the links mentioned in the episode are in the description below. Have a great day.